Well, usually what ends up happening is that if we're lucky, what we get is a fairly fleshed out script that gives us a lot of ideas. It's actually harder to go off of a script that has absolutely, where they say you have freedom to do whatever you want. That's actually a little bit harder. So we get the initial script and maybe a client board like we did in this case, where we had an agency board that had been fairly well fleshed out.
It's not unusual to go through a half dozen or more storyboards or character models before we arrive at something that's really going to work in terms of that particular production. The animatic will really help the client and the agency and the production company see how the pieces are going to fit together.
There's never a good time to get sick.
You're not obviously doing the finished production, but you're giving the client an opportunity to review the actual editing in terms of how the track and the picture will relate to each other without actually having to do that. So it allows the client to be able to see more of what the finished product's going to be and make critiquing comments on that at the time.
When we started working on Olivia, the primary character in the spot, one of the things was that we initially did drawings in multiple different styles to try to figure out which way we were going.
I think in this particular case, it's the aesthetic style that really drives this spot. We do a lot of different kinds of animation, everything, as Tim mentioned, from very cartoony to very realistic, as is in this case, where the movements and the anatomics of the characters are very real, but it's obviously an illustrated style, which makes it rather unique and interesting to look at, we think.
So we put out a call and we work through a talent agency here in town, and then we go and we cast on just a small setup with a video camera. And go ahead and give us Concerned Mom.
Gosh, I don't know if I should call the doctor. Okay, really sad.
Concerned Dad?
Should we take her to the doctor?
The casting process is it's just like we would do for a regular live action cast, where we put out a talent call and we look for the specific types within a certain range. Like obviously we didn't, for this one we didn't want a girl who was, couldn't look too mature, had to be someone who was relatively young looking, and still had that kind of baby pudge, I think is how we termed it. We wanted someone who didn't look like they had started, already becoming a teen. We were fortunate enough that we were able to find a girl who very much fit the bill, that the client liked, who she could do the talent part of it too. Because in normal animation, if you want someone to do something, you just make them do it, and you're only relying on the artist's talent. Whereas in this case, we were fortunate enough to actually find a girl who was able to dance and act and still look, relative to the age, about 10 or 12 years old.
Big smile and do that in any kind of little dance. Just a real simple dance while looking at the camera.
See, for the live action, we'll go ahead and shoot it, and we're shooting the live action in HD. And the reason why we're shooting in HD is because we're going to be illustrating these frames relatively large in the computer. So the HD, this is a little technical, but the HD will give us a really large frame size that we can use. And between the agency and ourselves, and probably the client as well, we'll try to come up with a rough edit of the best takes. We'll go through and we'll make sure that we have the best continuity and the best editing possible. And then once that happens and it's approved, because that's ultimately what will happen, is that we'll have to make sure that everyone's on the same board. And once we get final approval on the edit, or as much of the edit as we can, we'll probably be able to work in and out of scenes if we have to. We try to do something that's specific to animation, like in this case where we're doing an illustrated style, that there isn't any other way you could achieve that look.
rotoscope animation was developed many years ago, and the original process by which it was done involved taking a camera and actually turning it into a projector, where each frame of the live action was projected onto a table, and then an artist would sit there frame by frame by frame and actually draw that image out. And then based on that image, the animation was created. Today, because of the advent of computer technology, it's a totally different process and does not involve film or camera manipulation as back in those days.
After the rotoscoping process, that's where it really comes down to the client approvals and things like that. And hopefully at that point you don't have to go back and redo a whole lot of things. And then after that, it's kind of in the can at that point. From there, it's just getting it to the stations.
There's never a good time to get sick, but if you do, our newest Patient First is now open in Pasadena. Walk in any day from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. to see a physician, and if necessary, to get an X-ray, lab test, or prescription right there. With immediate and primary care services, it's the care you need when you need it. Learn more at patientfirst.com, now open in Pasadena.